you guys all are. So I want to share my experiences with you guys and be here to help. So any questions that you guys have, please feel free to come to me and ask. So a little bit about myself. I've grown up around horses since I was really little. From a young age, I showed the hunter jumpers, and I lived part of my life in Canada, so I showed the hunters up there as well. I showed all through high school, and as high school was kind of coming to a close, I knew that working with horses was a career that I wanted to immerse myself in and really pursue. So my mom encouraged me to get together with a trainer and start working and flirting and seeing if this is what I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. So at that point, I began working with a trainer by the name of Dave Mentier, and he's a natural horsemanship trainer out of West Bloomfield, New York, and he trains all of his horses Western. So that was a little bit of a learning curve because coming from an English background. In the summer of 2014, I had the opportunity to attend the United States Hunter Jumper Association. They put on a young horse trainer school, and for those of you in the hunter jumper arena, you'll know the name Linda Allen, and she was one of the clinicians at that school. And this was the first time that I was able to combine my my past in the hunter jumpers as well as what I'd learned about starting horses with Dave. So learning how to work with horses that their career, they've been bred to be hunter jumpers, and that's what their end goal was going to be. So that was really a great learning opportunity. Later on in the fall of that year, I took part in the Equine Comeback Challenge with the partner that I have here today, Little Louie. That was a 90-day trainers challenge, so there were 10 trainers, and we were paired with 10 rescue horses, and they were all unbroken when we started with them. So by the end of the 90 days, we took them to the Pennsylvania National Horse Show, and we had to show them off and compete in a trail course as well as a freestyle. So through all of this, I slowly began coaching and gaining some of my own clients, and what I do now is my own freelance training business called Equifest.
Everybody has something.
There we go. Up here. Okay. So I would like to start with the topic of young and unbroke horses. So young and unbroke horses they're not always the same thing. I've had young horses that are 3-year-olds that come to me that have never been ridden before, but I also seen horses that are 13 or 14 that have never been ridden before. So the first questions I like to ask the owners are,
Oh boy, Tony.
you have to touch. Has this horse ever been worked with? Has it had any professional training, on the ground? Do you work with the horse yourself? This just gives me an idea of what this horse knows. Secondly, I like to ask, what does this horse's daily life look like? The schedule at my barn is my horse is in over the night, and he goes out during the day. So that's 2 times that he's being handled that I'm not there, which is different than a horse that lives in a pasture, where someone throws him a flick of hay, not really being handled all day. So that gives me an idea as well as what he's doing on an average day. So meeting with the horse the first time, usually I'm there to give them their first lesson. I like to watch a lot. I like to watch their interaction with the owner. I like to watch their interaction with other horses if we're going out to the pasture. What is the horse's body language? What is the horse paying attention to? When we bring him in the barn, is he whinnying for his friends, or is he, is he paying attention and just standing there quietly? So usually my first lesson consists of groundwork. I like to ask just a super simple question. I'll be walking along with a loose lead rope and I just stop. Does the horse stop next to me? Does the horse kind of blow past me? Is he off in left field? That gives me a gauge of where this horse is at as well. So the first thing you need to establish in any relationship with your horse is respect. A lot of people have different methods of gaining respect. I'm sure you all have seen a vast majority of them. Treats and bribery, and that's always a fun one. But the way I like to look at it is you won't gain respect through submission. You gain submission through respect. So if you can kind of chew on that and think about that, it makes a lot of sense. So I really don't set out to have a servant-master relationship with my horse. I want my horse to want to do what I do. I want to respect them because they're about 4 times the size we are. So that's something important from the beginning. John Lyons says the first 2 things are you don't get hurt and your horse doesn't get hurt. So those are very important right from the get-go. That I need to establish with my young horses or any horse. I spent a lot of time early on doing groundwork with them. I'll do groundwork for maybe a week. I might do it for a month. It all depends on the horse and how they're moving along. So if I don't have the respect on the ground, I'm not going to have it in the saddle. So obviously that's something that I want to establish before I start riding them. So there's really not too much science behind what I do. I take everything one step at a time. So I want to make sure that the horse is confident doing the groundwork before I put the bridle on. I want to make sure that the horse is confident with the bridle on before I go and get on their back and start pulling on the bridle, sorts of things like that. So an example of one of the young horses that I've worked with is Little Louie. He was an unbroke standardbred, and he is 4 years old. He's 5 now. But he was 4 when I first started with him. And an interesting fact about him, he had just been gelded before I picked him up. So I wasn't sure if he was going to be a little studly when we started with him, but that ended up not being a problem. So in the beginning when I started working with him, he was very, very reserved about how he would deal with situations. He would do anything I asked him to do, but he was lacking the confidence in doing all those things, and I knew if I didn't take the time in the beginning with him that he was the type of horse that would bottle up his feelings, and later on that would become a problem and he would kind of explode. So I took a lot of time in the beginning, making sure that he was confident in everything I was asking him to do. So I have a video of the first time that I got on Little Louie, and I just like to show it and kind of talk through to give you guys an example of what I do. This is pretty much how I get on all of my horses for the first time. So by this point in time, my horses know how to stand at the mounting block. I'll do that on the ground. And I'll just start by, he's very comfortable with the saddle and the bridle by now, and I'll just start by putting some weight in the stirrup, making noise while I'm up there. I want my right arm to go wherever my right leg is going to go, because sometimes you can get a leg over and all of a sudden they're freaking out about that. So at this point, that I finally put all of my weight, on him, and I try to balance as best as I can, and he really doesn't care.
you tell him to walk so he knows he's supposed to walk? I mean,
Sometimes in the beginning they know the cue to, like if I say walk,
right.
so I might encourage them by using that, but at this point they pretty much know nothing about your legs. So you can squeeze on them and they're like,
Oh, yeah.
some horses might freak out about it, some of them might just be like, I don't know, I'm just going to sit here.
You're using your left rein now.
Yep, so I'll pull the rein around a little bit just to kind of get him to bend, and he'll eventually step off that rein. So that's pretty much all I ask when I do. And I make a big fuss over them because they once they feel like they've done something well, they just speed right off of that. So, now I'd like to switch to the topic of talking about off-the-track horses. Horses' life on the track is extremely different than the life of a pleasure or a show horse. They're mostly in a stall. You know, they're on very high performance speeds. They're on a strict training regimen. You know, they're out at the training track at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They come back. They're hot washed. They're sprayed off. You know, they get their legs wrapped. They're groomed. You know, they're being handled for a really long time during the day. Off the track thoroughbreds, standardbreds, quarter horses, they're all fantastic athletes. That's what they're bred to do. And for lack of a better word, when you repurpose them and use them and give them new careers, they're fantastic athletes and fantastic competitors because that's what they're bred to do. So questions I'll ask the owners of these horses are, how long has this horse been off the track? You know, this is kind of important. Has this horse run his last race this afternoon, or has he been off for a month or two? Why did this horse retire from racing? Did he have an injury? Was he too slow? Was it poor training? This is another important question for me to ask, especially if it was because of an injury. You know, I wanted to be careful of that, or, you know, specifically work on that area of the horse so that it can build up muscles and different things like that. And lastly, what's your end goal with this horse? Do you want it to be a jumper? Do you want it to be a trail horse? Just a pleasure horse? Having a goal with any of your horses is very important. Whether it's a simple goal like, I just want to be able to canter once around the arena, or it's a complex goal like, I want to show all the way up and down the East Coast, you know? It's important to have that because once you achieve a goal, you feel satisfied and your horse feels satisfied as well. If you're constantly going to the barn frustrated, like, my horse is never just going to be good enough, your horse is going to feed off of that too, they know. So, off-the-track horses really thrive on a schedule and consistency. If you plan on coming out to the barn at 3 o'clock every day and bringing your horse in and grooming them and packing them up, lunging them, riding them, and you keep that schedule at 3 o'clock every day of the week, especially I found with the thoroughbreds, they kind of relax into that. You know, they know what's expected of them, and when you're out there at 3 o'clock, they're like, okay, I know what the schedule's going to be, and they don't worry about it. Often horses that have already been previously trained, sometimes they're harder to work with. You're kind of going through some of the bad habits that they've learned in the past, and that can kind of present its own problems. So again, with these guys, I begin with a lot of groundwork. You got to retrain their thinking. So simple things like walking them out to the pasture. You know, they're not running out to the racetrack and just want them to walk out quietly. Simple things like that. Another big thing that I will always do with my off-the-track horses is an obstacle. So it doesn't have to be something big like a tarp, like getting them to walk over a tarp or something like that right away, but I want to know what my horse's reaction is before I get on their back. So it might be something simple like walking past the scary flower box in the corner of the arena. But I want to know if my horse is going to snort at it or if he's going to turn around, kick at it, and try and drag me out of the arena. That's something important to know before you get on their back, what they're going to do. So eventually, once I'm riding them, I'll work on flat work with them, teaching them smaller circles. The thoroughbreds are used to running big, huge circles. The standardbreds are used to a cart sometimes, or under saddle racing. So that presents different challenges. What they're used to is not what you're going to use them for now. Taking them or asking them to give to the bit. The racehorses are taught to grab onto the bit, kind of grab onto your hands, lean forward, and just run. I want to teach them, no, I need you soft. I need something else from you. And relaxation. That's mostly going to come through consistency. So I want to encourage you guys, if you have any off-the-track horses, be patient with these steps because they're so important. Because if you have these foundation steps down later on down the road, you're not going to run into trouble. So my example of a horse off the track is actually my own, Simon. I adopted him from the Finger Lakes Thoroughbred Adoption Center, and he raced at Finger Lakes. So with Simon, the biggest struggle with him was nutrition, which is also important with some of the off-the-track thoroughbreds. Feeding previous athletes can be tricky. There's many factors that go into it. They're usually eating a lot of grain, like about 5 times the amount you would think is what they're getting at the track, and that usually makes them hot. They're often on sweet feeds and stuff like that. With them being in a stall all the time and they're not out naturally grazing like they're used to, that presents ulcers often. Both horses that come off the track may have underlying ulcers or serious ulcer problems. And coming down from being such a high performance athlete, they're often dropping weight and they're dropping muscle as well. So those are all struggles that you can kind of run into. So Simon was really underweight coming off of the track. And this is what he looked like when we first got him. And to be perfectly honest, we didn't have the proper maintenance program for, he came off the track with ulcers, so we didn't have the right maintenance program for his ulcers in the beginning. And through a lot of trial and error, we learned a lot about the best maintenance program for him.
Excuse me, how did you know he had ulcers?
He is a very nervous horse in general, and we started having problems when I was riding him. He would get very grouchy, and eventually the problem resulted all the way to he would stop and he'd pin his ears, and I could tell that it wasn't behavioral, it was physical. He was not feeling good, and trying to put weight on him it took forever. Nothing was working. I mean, we tried everything under the sun. I could tell you about pretty much any grain on the market because we tried it all over him. So those were different things that I knew. And once he started to feel better, his attitude changed. So I knew that we were on the right track when he was starting to feel better.
Is there medication you give him for the ulcers?
At this point, he's on a natural supplement that we have. We tried, the generic omeprazole, the Gastrogard, all that sort of stuff with him, and those sorts of things didn't work. So what he actually has is less stomach ulcers and more hindgut ulcers. So the generic omeprazole and things like that, those affect the stomach ulcers, but they won't reach the hindgut ulcers. So eventually, a day hit when my omeprazole wasn't doing anything for him, and I could tell he was still in pain. So the supplement I have him on now works with the whole gastrointestinal tract and helps him, and that's what he's on now, and that's what he's
What is that
maintaining.
supplement?
It's called Equifest. It's by Juliette Getty. She's a nutritionist. We found her online. She's not super, I don't know if you guys know who she is. If you look her up online, she has her own, she's an ulcer specialist. So she understands this stuff, and when we were kind of pulling our hair out at the end, what am I going to do anymore with this horse? It was really at the point, do we have to put him down because we cannot figure out what's going to make this horse comfortable, and he can't live like this. So once we found her, you can call her up and pay for a consultation on the phone with her, which we didn't end up doing that, but we tried her supplement and her regimen that she recommends, and it worked, and that's what he's on now.
What's her name again?
Juliette Getty. So that's what he looked like before when we first got him. I think we got him in November, and I think this was in December.
How old is he?
At this point, he was 5. And this is what he looks like now.
Wow.
a little fatter and a little happier. So sometimes it takes a small village to get these horses turned around. And for Simon's case, I think it was a whole army between the vets, the trainers, all of the research, the countless hours I spent online trying to figure out what the heck his problem was. But through it all, this is why I do what I do, because I've learned so much through him alone, all the other horses on top of that, but you learn so much from these animals. So that's pretty much all I have, but I'd like to open it up for questions for you guys.
Why did you choose him?
Honestly?
Yeah.
I never rode him the first time I met him. It was a personality thing. I kind of went into the barn, and there's 20 other horses, and
I have a CV from St. Louis.
oh yeah.
And I picked him based on personality. When I went 5 days in a row, and the horse I chose was the only horse that came to the door every time because he was there.
Yep.
A lot of them stand with their faces in the corner.
Yep.
That's what they do for 23 hours a day.
Yep.
I would make a comment to anybody who's interested. Ask the question in your head, why did he stop racing? Right. I had one who physically broke. He's not rideable. But in his head, after 5 years, he's still a racehorse.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. When your body fails, but your brain is still competitive, it's much more difficult for that animal to transition into something else.
Yeah.
So be aware of that.
Yeah. For sure. And especially when it's like an acute injury, like it happened recently, those super fit animals, it's hard enough when you can hand walk in them and get them out and try and bring them down slowly off the track. But when they all of a sudden have an injury and they go from racing that afternoon to sitting in stall for the next 6 months to a year out of their life, their mind is like, this is not what I'm used to. That's not even what I'm bred to do.
No,
What are you asking me to do?
They used to try to pony mine to get them out.
Yeah.
Stuff, but the distance from the barn to the starting gate is about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And after
And he
15 minutes ponying, he was like, when do we go? When do we go?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
I know that you trained a lot of horses, but I was wondering if you could generalize, is there a difference between like training an older horse that hasn't had much done with them versus training a young horse?
Typically in my experience, the older horses are a little more set in their ways. The younger horses are kind of like, oh, what is life? I don't even know what I'm doing here today. So those are the easier ones that like, here, I can guide you in a path, and this is what our daily life needs to look like. Where the older ones are like, I'm used to my grain at 8 o'clock. What are you doing here at 8:05 with a halter? Those are the ones that sometimes, but other times the older horses are like, okay, I'm relaxed about life. What do you got for me? And the younger ones are still off the wall.
Do you train riders as well as horses?
Yeah. Yep.
This horse with the hindgut ulcers, what was he like to groom him and handle, touch his body?
Grooming for him wasn't the worst thing. I know some horses that are typically ulcery, they're very sensitive with the grooming, but he wasn't necessarily that. It was more the riding, touching him and things like that. He could handle that in the barn, but it was a very weird thing when he first started. He would just refuse to go forward. I mean, you could not smack him forward. Nothing would get him to move forward. He would just in his ears or his back, and he was like, I'm not going anywhere. And I was like, at first, because I had first gotten him, I'm like, is he just being naughty or what is this? And once we worked through getting his guts in order, now he's happy to go forward.
Did he have diarrhea or black stool?
No, none of that either. So in the beginning, not knowing very much, I mean, I was 15 when we first got him, so we were young and didn't know very much, honestly. So if I had him now, back then, what I know now, and could start over again, things would be a lot different. But
Is that where they took him off the track with the ulcers?
No, he came off of the track. He just wasn't fast enough, and he wasn't under a great training situation. So they kind of knew, they kind of had his eye on that trainer in general because they knew he didn't take fantastic care of his horses. But he wasn't winning races, and they weren't going to.
How could he race with the bad ulcers?
That's something that, honestly, I've watched some of his win races, and his head is in the stand. So I think if he had more focused training and, better nutrition, he very well might have been a great racehorse. But, at the track, they have such a short window of opportunity to either get these horses winning or to get rid of them. So he just didn't fit into that window.
Now, do you get these free?
No, through the adoption center, they have an adoption fee. Some of the horses, if you're in with the trainer off the track, because there's so many of them in the wintertime, if you wanted to go to the backside and pick up a horse, trainers are giving them away because, some trainers really don't want to see their horse go down the wrong road. They want them to have a good second life, but it all depends. They're hurting at the end of the season if they didn't do so well either. So you can find them for free. People do give them away.